The Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus said, "Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him because they do not know the voice of strangers." Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, "Very truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved, and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." The Gospel of the Lord. Please be seated. This Good Shepherd Sunday, Jesus says, "I am the gate." Throughout John's Gospel, Jesus offers us several images through which we may understand who he is for us. The image of the Good Shepherd is a metaphorical one Jesus uses immediately following this text to describe himself. Historically, it refers to a good leader and finds its roots in ancient Near East cultures centuries prior to Jesus' arrival. Gail Ramshaw writes that in these ancient texts, rulers like Gilgamesh, Hammurabi, and Ramses II, along with deities such as the Sumerian god Enlil and goddess Nigel, were compared to shepherds. Even Plato, in his work, The Republic, wrote of the ways in which heads of state ought to be like shepherds. We hear in Psalm 28, the psalmist praising King David as a skillful leader who shepherded Israel faithfully and with a true heart. Ramshaw writes that at the most ancient level of biblical storytelling, sheep are highly respected. For without their life, communal survival would not be possible. In other words, God values God's people. And even in our frailty, like sheep, we human beings are important to God. So much so that God desires for us a good shepherd. Perhaps it sounds strange, but it kind of feels like we're in the midst of a global shepherding crisis. We sheep are certainly at odds with one another as to what makes a good leader, as if we can no longer discern the difference between the voice of the good shepherd versus that of the stranger calling out to us, or the thief, or a bandit, so many of which have seemed to snuck into the fold of civic leadership, both confusing and frightening our exhausted, sheepy selves. How do we discern the Good Shepherd? Hear that voice through the cacophony of violent rhetoric and warring that surrounds us, as evidenced by the violence that erupted last night at the Washington Correspondents' Dinner, as evidenced by the civil unrest that erupted across Mali last night, further destabilizing northern Africa. How do we understand good shepherding to help guide us in our own leadership as faithful disciples for our place in time? Certainly, it is the Good Shepherd who offers his flock safety, protection, and abundance, like that which is found by sheep who follow the voice of their shepherd entering the sheepfold. We heard in today's Psalm 23 the acts of the Good Shepherd, acts that provide for his flock the basic necessities to thrive: food, water, protection when danger lurks nearby, a table prepared even in the presence of one's enemies, a cup that overflows with goodness and mercy. These are aspects or qualities the psalmist ascribes to a good leader. And still, Jesus further defines for us why he is the Good Shepherd, with the image of his very being also that of the gate. In antiquity, the Good Shepherd would have led his flock before nightfall into a cave carved out in a rocky hillside. And after ushering the sheep inside for the night, the Good Shepherd would have laid down at its entrance to shield his flock from any who might attempt to enter and harm them. Unlike the bad shepherd, it was the Good Shepherd whose body was the gate. Jesus, the Good Shepherd, is the gate, the embodiment of self-sacrificial leadership and love for us. An image through which we all may evaluate all leadership, including our own. By the time Jesus arrived on the scene over 2,000 years ago, the image of the shepherd was an example of leadership par excellence that had fallen into disrepair. Shepherding was considered poor, dirty, lower class, and disreputable. It did not reflect the gilt-edged elite images of power and authority modeled by the Roman Empire. Jesus, God incarnate, and the authors of his story reclaimed this image of the Good Shepherd for the disempowered, resurrecting it anew for their time. And their testimony of Jesus as the Good Shepherd speaks powerfully to us for our time, when the poor, the disreputable, those deemed lower class, those living in places torn apart by war, need love, protection, and the hope that our Good Shepherd provides. We hear from the Acts of Apostles this morning how the early disciples interpreted discipleship living in this good shepherding way of the gate. They would lay down their possessions, goods, and distribute the proceeds to all who had need. They laid down their time with one another, broke bread together with glad and generous hearts, and worshiped their God, keeping their focus on sharing God's goodness and mercy with all. And the Lord added to their number those who joined the sheepfold of protection and abundance and were saved. And again, next week we will hear in Acts, when called upon like St. Stephen, they risked laying down their very bodies. And when they fell short of the glory that belongs to God and God alone, they trusted, as may we, that we are covered in the blood of our Good Shepherd, to rise again and to lead by and with God's grace. This is the way. For the one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. May we listen to this voice, the one who came so that we and all God's people might have life and have it abundantly. Thanks be to God. Amen.